Hello, this is Cristiano Alberghini, Steinberg certified teacher and Dorico beta tester. With the integration of Vienna Synchron library products into Dorico, it is now possible to achieve extremely convincing mockups from an early stage. This allows me to deliver directors and clients an early version of a composition that's very close to the final one. A software I always use is Vienna Ensemble Pro because it speeds up my whole workflow. So again, I chose to load the Vienna Synchron players with their respective libraries inside Vienna Ensemble Pro. This also allows me to use the same Vienna Ensemble Pro project in my DAW, saving time. For all the unisons, I use the ensemble libraries, adding a dedicated staff. We can do this by entering a solo instrument and then clicking on the plus symbol, thus adding a second staff to the same musician. In this way, Dorico will switch between staffs, optimizing the space vertically. This is especially useful when we want to use divisi in the strings, so that we can correctly assign all the libraries in relationship to the ensemble section. I chose the Synchron Strings Pro library for the ensemble parts and the Synchron Elite Strings for the divisi parts. I used Mixer preset Classic Surround to Stereo for strings and brass, Distant Surround to Stereo for percussion, and Decca 3 for woodwinds. I then used the Mixer preset Concert Room Mix for the Fazioli F308 piano and harp. The only synchronized instrument in this project is the clarinet in E flat with factory settings. In some instruments, such as bass drum, snare drum, and others, I modified the decay in the algorithmic reverb. I connected Dorico to my template in Vienna Ensemble Pro, and then assigned the correct expression map for each instrument. In the Vienna Assistant, it is possible to download all the expression maps for the Vienna Symphonic Library products. In this core, I created a custom expression map for the timpani. This was really quick because only 2 articulations are used. I also created a custom expression map of the snare drum and field drum, so that I could alternate between the left and right hand sample, and use the actually performed roll. While for the cymbals and other percussions, I moved the chosen sample to the default note assigned in Dorico. I made 2 changes in the expression maps. For the parts where crescendos are involved, I enabled the secondary dynamics in order to use velocity crossfade with control change number 2. I also added the fast repetition 160 BPM articulation in order to achieve a realistic execution of the repeated notes. As you can see, there's only one note executed. I suppressed the execution for the other notes, so by activating the appropriate button, I was able to lengthen the first note for as long as necessary. I then copy-pasted the first note, speeding up the insertion process for all the rebated notes that use this articulation. To set the general volumes, I used control change number 7 and 11. I dragged the MIDI file with automations for CC7 and 11 in all the staffs. This allowed me to set the volumes for all the players really quickly. In this MIDI file, I also set the control change 28 to 127, so that I could activate the velocity crossfader in the Synchron player. For percussions, I used note velocity except in the crescendos. As I entered the notes, I would listen and check for errors, and everything already sounded very good. When I wanted to improve the performance, I would write control change automations, but this happened very few times thanks to Dorico. First of all, I checked that the crescendos and dynamics respected the library layers, and I found a very good average, setting the dynamic curve to 4. In the timpani, I assigned grace notes to the roll articulation, using the roll for the first 2 notes and the note release for the last one. In order not to add a new articulation in the expression map, I changed two key switches by choosing Ctrl Change 3 and 1 and reset the velocity crossfade with Ctrl Change number 2. I used three staffs for the strings as well, ensemble and divisi. I linked the first and second staff in order to optimize the vertical spaces and thus have a dedicated MIDI channel. In the first staff, I have the Early Violins Synchron Strings Pro. In the second and third staffs, the Early Violins Synchron Elite Strings. To play marcato, staccato and legato in Dorico, just enter the traditional symbology that is used in music writing. Thanks to VSL expression map, everything works perfectly. In some cases, however, I suppressed the legato execution because the mockup did not match perfectly with the original version. In the Dorico mixer, I used parallel compression in the reverb bus. In the master out, I used frequency equalizer and maximizer to optimize the final volumes. I added supervision to control the peaks, RMS and loudness. In Vienna Ensemble Pro, I used the stock plugins for compression in some percussion, EQ for the timpani and exciter in the snare drum to emphasize some higher harmonics. I hope this video was helpful for optimizing your work with Dorico and Synchron products. You can download this Dorico project from the Vienna Assistant to see and hear for yourself. For any information about Vienna Symphonic Library products, you can contact the VSL team directly and they will get back to you in no time.